Now more than ever, companies are asking people to buy based on a promise. The 3 is an excellent car. However, I think Polestar needed a little bit more time to, 1, have a better release, and 2, make better decisions. Let's dive in. Because we've been desensitized, I don't think 517 horsepower is a big talking point. Yes, it will make your stomach turn like undercooked chicken, but I want to kick this off by discussing the important stuff you might not know. This is based on the SPA2 platform that's going to underpin vehicles like the Volvo EX90. That car was a big departure for Volvo, so it tried to emulate what Tesla does with a core computing chip. This would basically have a central ECU function as the brains for most of the car. The idea is smart because without it, they need over 100 ECUs, limiting their ability to easily update various aspects of the car. In Tesla's case, it does work really well. The problem is, Volvo isn't Tesla. They basically sourced a chip from Nvidia and kind of botched the software, resulting in many bugs around the release of the Volvo EX90. They also have, this big hood scoop with LiDAR on it that this car was, I think, originally supposed to have, but it doesn't. It's supposed to give this semi-autonomous abilities. They say that should be able to come sometime down the line. Hasn't yet. While it's normal for first model year cars to have teething issues, this platform has had a more bumpy start than I was anticipating. I've noticed a couple myself, including an alarm that gets set off. It has sensors in the cabin to detect if there's a person or a dog in here. And even though there was nobody in the car, it was still beeping frantically at me to fix the situation. It also refused to shut off and lock for my production assistant, trapping her outside in the rain as she tried to figure out a way to secure this $90,000 car. A lot of Volvo EX90 owners are running into electrical bugs, many of which result with ghost errors. Things like critical suspension fault or driver support system fault can pop up despite no real issue being present. There's also a ghost drain on the battery of about 3% a day until the car enters deep sleep mode. Outside of miscellaneous minor bugs, the most consistent issue among Polestar owners, according to the NHTSA, is that the car refuses to AC or slow charge. At the very least, it seems that the P3 has had a less problematic release than the EX90. One underlying cause of quirks is the now dated processor, so Polestar is going to do the right thing for 2026. They're basically going to recall every single ECU that they've built for it. So Nvidia has basically released an updated chip and they're going to use that instead. That will have the computing power that's needed for this kind of vehicle. I'm just kind of surprised that they would have released this car as is to begin with. Now, the bright side for the Polestar comes down to two things: progress and price. In these same forums where people are reporting issues, they're also reporting that a lot of updates have actually fixed things, so that is reassuring. And currently for leases, Polestar will actually match the government incentive. So that means you have a total of $15,000 in credit. Including taxes, you can still have a payment below $1,000 with just a few grand down. Don't get me wrong, that's still a very expensive car, but if you compare this to something like the most popular luxury SUV in the United States, which is the Lexus RX, it's comparable in terms of a monthly payment. Probably gonna pay a little bit more in insurance, but maybe your fuel savings will offset that. Now with some of the fine print out of the way, how well does this do car things? As standard, the Polestar will have a single motor at the rear, making 300 horsepower. That should get you to 60 around 7 seconds, and that's gonna offer the most range at 350 miles. This has a huge 110 kilowatt hour battery pack, so it's not necessarily the king of efficiency. Opt for 2 motors, and you'll have considerably more ponies. Again, we'll have 517 horsepower here with the performance trim, 489 with just the regular dual motor. Some outlets have gotten this to 60 in a hair under 4 seconds. Let's see what it'll do at half battery. 0 to 60 came up in a smooth 4.2 seconds, but you'll sacrifice some range for that. The EPA rates the dual motor for 315 miles, they say 279 for the performance grade, but in range mode, the gap between the two should close considerably. The only sacrifice that you'll feel with range mode is that the powertrain will actually disconnect the rear motor when it doesn't feel that it's needed. So under normal throttle situations, you're not really gonna notice that. It's still got an acceptable amount of passing power, but you will notice it when you begin to ask for more. It's got a almost 2 or 3 second delay before you really get the juice. Polestar was definitely prioritizing smooth delivery over immediate power, which I am perfectly fine with, as that's kind of the point of a range mode. So, how far can this drive? First, let's juice up at a CCS fast charger. You can also use NACS if you have an adapter. With the battery warmed up after a day of driving, I went from 25 to 90% in 40 minutes. This uses a 400 volt battery, which means the station will need to push a serious amount of current to hit the peak 250 kilowatt charging rates reported by some European folks. Here, I maxed out just over 150 and it stepped down around 50%. Frustratingly, you have to precondition the battery through a schedule. There's no nav-based auto on or manual function. At least the Google built-in software was great at locating chargers in my brief time with it. After getting robbed at 58 cents per kilowatt hour, I fulfilled the American dream by driving 153 miles to get a cheeseburger. Taking the long way, I tried to cruise around 70 miles per hour, occasionally passing people and also running into traffic twice. With the AC on eco and warm conditions, I made the trip with 51% to spare. This equates to a respectable 2.91 miles per kilowatt hour. That average would put me at a 311 mile range. Granted, that would drop if I drove faster or had cold weather, but it's good to know that you can stretch the range past 300 miles on the highway in the right conditions. On my trip, I did find a few quirks. The speed limit assist is constantly confused, the refined adaptive cruise control does not let you adjust the distance, and there's no hands-free functionality either. Two things that will be, you guessed it, fixed in the future. Though hands-free will require LiDAR. While I'd appreciate faster charging and more complete driver aids for 90 grand, this is excellent to drive. Like the name suggests, the Polestar knows how to dance. I really like how the steering is weighted in standard or firm mode. It builds up well. You also have maybe just a hint of feedback, which I was really not expecting. Getting any steering feedback in a vehicle that scares pavement like a Chevy Suburban is hilarious. Sure, it's not super quick to change direction, but it does feel more precise than I was expecting, especially when you're not pushing it to its absolute limits. This does not have, quad motors or anything like that, but it does have a rear differential with torque vectoring, and you can really feel it as it pulls this thing through corners. I mean, not necessarily, the most engaging driving experience, but it is capable. Now, if you go with the single motor, you're gonna have passive damping. With the dual motor though, you're going to have air ride. I have heard good things about the single rear motor model, but I am pretty impressed with this as well. With the performance model, the 3 different suspension modes are shifted a little bit more toward the sporty side of things. That said, this is still plenty comfortable. You'll feel potholes, but in the standard suspension mode, they're never jarring. It does an excellent job of smoothing out poor pavement as well. This is a very sure-footed yet isolated ride. As standard, you're gonna have an acoustic windshield, you're gonna have acoustic glass as well, and when you combine that with active noise cancellation, a thick battery underneath, and luxury car levels of insulation, this is one of the most quiet vehicles I've driven, as it should be for the money. I also like that we have standard Brembo brakes. They're very reassuring, especially in a class of car that tends to wimp out on brakes because they also have regeneration in one pedal modes, but people forget that those generate heat. So if you're really pushing the car, you might not want to use those as much, and you might rely more on your standard brakes. And maybe that's a rare situation. I don't see anyone tracking a Polestar 3, but it's cool to see that attention to detail, especially when it considers safety. Yet safety doesn't seem to be at the forefront of the controls. Many simple adjustments require multiple steps. So instead of just having like, oh, a sport mode switch or just a button down here, like you have a performance button, or I guess icon that you can tap to set the power delivery to performance. But to change the steering or the suspension, you gotta dig into the touchscreen in order to do it, which I just think is dumb. You could even put it on one of the blank switches in the steering wheel, because this actually has, I think, like 8 switches that don't do a damn thing 95% of the time, unless you're adjusting the cruise control, steering wheel, or mirrors. Not all the features here are poorly thought out. The 360 view camera has an excellent resolution, and it lets you know exactly how far away it is from another car or wall. And when it comes to the style, I think this was well executed to a boring degree. The front spoiler keeps the face bold without sacrificing aerodynamics. The basic shape is very much blob SUV, but the muscular stance, sharp lighting, understated sheet metal, and huge 22-inch wheels with the giant gold calipers state luxury without just screaming money. Let me know your thoughts. One interesting detail, the tire sizes here are staggered. In the trunk, the Polestar is not as large as the exterior size would suggest. So to start things off, we do not have a 40-20-40 fold. We just have this. Oh, but we do have a really handy cargo cover slash, I guess it's not the cover, cargo floor. This divider is made of like a more solid material than you would expect. Maybe it's a wood, I don't know. But I can cover things up nicely, and it also serves as a really nice little shelf. You can put groceries in here. I like to put my camera equipment here so it doesn't fly all about when I'm testing out that 500 horsepower. And if for some reason I can't quite get something in the back, I do have buttons that will lower the rear suspension. The compromise comes from the height. Most mid-size luxury SUVs offer more space as a result. Like many of its foes, you won't have a spare tire, just a fix-a-flat kit that lives in the frunk, which isn't too usable, but does come with a nice cover. Now, normally to get inside of the Polestar 3, you would need your phone. However, if you don't have your phone or it's dead, you can use a key card. It comes out of this case. It's something that you could easily fit in your wallet. But you have to tap the door handle, not on the side that you would think. You have to tap it over here, and then that is how you unlock and lock the car. It will not auto lock or auto unlock unless you are using your phone, which I think is kind of frustrating. And then in order to start the car, you have to put the key on the charger. Polestar had a good thing going here with this interior, but I do think they placed too much of their faith in tech. In some areas, it is helpful, but in a lot of others, it's just convoluted. Now, to get started, you do have soft closed doors if you go with the Plus package, and all of them are going to have electronic release, which in order to do the manual release, you just full pull here, but in order to do the easy release, you just... Now, another thing that people like to complain about here are the rear window switches. In order to roll down the rear windows, you have to tap here first. Personally, I don't really care. I hardly ever roll down my rear windows, and this just keeps me from looking like an idiot when I only want to roll down this window. The only thing that I'm actually noticing that's kind of odd is this is really slow, is it not? I'm happy to see that unlike the Volvo EX30 I recently drove, this does have a driver display, but they're not using this to its full capabilities. Neither are they using this steering wheel to its full capabilities. So if I want to change what's on here, I can tap here and it'll give me, you know, a few different things, which is fine, I guess. It doesn't give me my odometer until the car is off, and it also doesn't really tell me like music. It doesn't tell me the efficiency that I'm getting. I also would have liked to see these buttons backlit, which they just aren't. And most of the time, they don't do anything. Like really, the only buttons that do stuff are this. This one is to change your display, and then this one is to use the Google Voice control, which, you know, helps you change your temperature. Change temperature to 72 degrees.
Got it. Changing the temperature to 72 degrees.
And that's neat and all, but I don't like relying on stuff like that, because if I'm just listening to music, which is what I'm doing 95% of the time, or I'm talking to someone in the car, which is what I'm doing the other 5% of the time, I don't want to have to, like, hey, pause, change the temperature to 72 degrees, and then wait for the Google response as it turns down the volume. I just want a knob. And if you want to change the temperature through the screen, you have to tap here once and then you can do it. Now, to Polestar's credit, this is a very snappy screen, and it does make it pretty easy for me to, you know, make my adjustments fast without being too hot and bothered about it. And you can set up, you know, your driver profiles, which will work with your phone so it knows who's in the car, and then it will quickly adjust. So that way you don't need to interact with the screen as much as you might think. But even in my week of using it, there's just been more instances where it's bothered me than made my life easier, and I hope this trend becomes less mainstream soon. Okay, with that ran over, what about the rest of the interior? Well, it feels like its price tag. Most of the things in this interior have some sort of leather or soft touch. This wood looks really nice. The build quality in a lot of areas is strong. In some areas it does creak a little bit, like on the dashboard. Outside of that, really solid car. And we do have a cool volume tune dial with, you know, a skip track function and a pause play. The glossy black material around it, I'm not a big fan of. This should have been the same wood that's up here. I don't know why we're cost cutting there in this kind of vehicle. When it comes to the aesthetic, I kind of wish that this was livened up with some different colors, but I am a fan of the yellow seatbelts. You can change the ambient lighting from white to this Swedish gold if you want. I think that looks really cool. Plus, this giant panoramic sunroof is really good at actually keeping the heat out. I don't feel like I'm getting roasted. I think Polestar has done a good job of achieving this understated feeling of luxury on both the exterior and interior. I'm really digging the ambiance, and this Bowers & Wilkins sound system is something that I was really looking forward to, and it proved to be good. I think it does a great job of producing accurate bass. It is crisp. It's just not quite as clean sounding as what I've experienced with the best that Bowers & Wilkins has to offer. Which I guess makes sense, because if you look at some Volvos, that is a $3,000 plus option on its own, whereas here it's part of a very large $5,000 package. Now, there are a few other things that I think Polestar did really well here, and one would be the seats. These are very supportive, very well shaped. They are maybe a tad firm, but overall I just haven't experienced any fatigue, and I really like that you even have a thigh extension. Plus, the massage function lives up to the name. Most other cars that offer this are rudimentary in comparison. Storage in here has also been top-notch. You have space for, you know, even a small bag here in the door card. We have a pretty large center tunnel area that you could put another small bag. This comes out so that you can secure some miscellaneous items. I'm also really happy to see physical stocks. This is for, you know, your windshield wipers, which are automatic as standard, and you have the drive select. No slide touch thing here in the center screen, no turning signal buttons. Thank you, Polestar, for doing us a solid there. Now, at 6'3", I actually do have, wasp. I actually do have enough space to sit behind myself with ease. I mean, plenty of legroom, just enough headroom. The only downside, I think, is the support. So the floor here is kind of high. I also would have liked to see some sort of sunshade maybe, but this would still work well as a family vehicle. And you do have a dog mode. It just automatically activates when it senses someone's left in the car. One last detail I'd like to share, these deployable cup holders feel really nice and solid. Just because you feel that you should do something doesn't mean that you can, at least for the moment. If I'm dropping, say, $1,000 or more a month to drive a new SUV, I want a car that is, one, bug-free, but two, is shipped with the right chip. I want all the features too, not promises. And I want software and interior design that doesn't require extra steps for basic functions. Now, it's a lot easier for me to make excuses on a car that's, say, affordable, but with something like the Polestar 3, this is a luxury car. It needs to be the real deal all the way around. Polestar has made a phenomenal luxury car, but my frustrations with it have distracted me from that. And my technical concerns with the vehicle make it something that I'd only feel comfortable recommending as a lease, even if you can actually afford to buy it. I don't mean for this review to sound negative because this is such a good vehicle. But Polestar, if you're watching this, build on the good things that you've done, continue to work out the kinks with the software, replace all those chips, but also please refocus on the experience. Give us the luxury without the trade-offs. Thanks for watching, and thank you to my channel members for helping me improve my content. Consider joining for additional videos. I'll catch you in the next one.